Hi, I'm Femi Oke.
And I'm Malika Bilal. 82 Chibok schoolgirls are now free after negotiations between the Nigerian government and Boko Haram.
But after years of being celebrity captives, is true freedom possible? That's today on The Street. It's another kind of imprisonment. That's how some family members describe the government rehabilitation camp, now home to dozens of Nigerian schoolgirls.
The girls are in extensive counseling and re-education after their kidnapping and captivity by Boko Haram. The armed group swarmed their school in Chibok in April 2014, kidnapping 276 girls. 82 girls were just let go as part of a prisoner swap. 21 were released in October 2016. The mother of one of the girls freed last year says she's only seen her daughter 3 times.
She's still with the officials. I really want to see her and stay close, but I understand the government is helping her with her education, so I must wait.
More than 100 girls remain missing, their fate unknown. But what awaits those who are now free? Here to talk about this from Abuja, Nigeria, we have Peter Joseph. He's the brother of one of the girls still missing and the uncle of one of the girls who was freed back in October. Buki Shonebare is a strategic team member with the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. And in Auburn, Maine, Somalia Dem, she is a mental health counsellor who has worked with some of the girls who escaped in 2014 and now lives in the United States. It's good to have you here, everybody. I should say that until a few moments ago, we had a government advisor, and we also had a Minister of Women and Women Affairs with us, but our connections were so bad. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be part of this conversation, but they will be watching. And if you can tweet us in as well. Peter, you know what it's like to have one of these captive young girls, now young women, come back to your family. This happened to you last October. But yeah, do they come back? What is that like? What happens? What happened to your niece?
All right, thank you very much. It's a great honor, and we were very happy to learn of the news that our sister was released. That's last October, but we are not very much impressed with the way the government is handling the whole rehabilitation process. Now, since her release, me personally, I got to meet her just once when they traveled down to Chibok last December. That's the last time I met with her, and we are not even aware of how the rehabilitation process is going on. Nobody is allowed to see them. So that's just what is happening. So it's like another imprisonment. I can say.
Yeah.
But this one has to do with the government.
See, Buki, this is interesting because there is this celebration, this congratulations, some of these girls have been released, and then to find out that the girls who were released in October didn't go home, and the girls who've just been released, they are not going home. How do you understand that? How do you make sense of that?
You know, one of the things that becomes expedient after hostages are brought back is a full system of rehabilitation, reintegration, and resocialization. And because of the technical capacity that will be required for the different activities in each of these processes, it is expected that government would take charge of most of those activities. And that requires a lot of expertise, like the medical care, the psychosocial care, the education, and all of that. That takes a period of time. It requires some form of timeline. But I think where the lacuna is here is the angle of communication. It is imperative that all through the cycle of rehabilitation, resocialization, and reintegration, members of the family are not only carried along, but they also understand what is going on. They should know what input is going into that. They should know what sort of activities their children and family are going through. They should know what sort of outcome and output is expected. And they should know when they would have them back. But most importantly also is that because their friends and family especially are those that they used to know as the safe place, they should be carried along in that process of the 3 R's that I mentioned. So I think there is a challenge with communication. There is a challenge with this exact system and the structure and the modus operandi of carrying that out. And that puts responsibility on the government to sort that particular gap.
I hear that challenge of communication, although online people are taking it in various ways. On the one hand, you have people like Mecho on Facebook. He says they're being held captive by the government. That's his perspective of this rehabilitation program. But another person is more understanding. Caddy says the girls need psychological help, but more importantly, they need their loved ones. Rehabilitation shouldn't feel like detention to them. Peter, I know you were talking about your niece, and I know that you told our producers ahead of the show that you talk to her at least every weekend. What are those conversations like?
I do talk to her like on phone she's not allowed to talk on phone for a long period of time. So she's allowed to talk to somebody for 2 or 3 minutes and then she'll be cut off. So there's no chance one can ask her certain questions. The last time I talked to her was that she's coming home here in Abuja, because we stay with our uncle here in Abuja who always does everything for us. So she was coming home for the break for a break, but all of a sudden she called in to say that she's not coming home anymore. So communication tends to be a problem. And I also asked her the other time if there's a way we as a family can go and see her, and she said no, they're not allowed to receive anybody, and only female can sneak in to see them sometimes, but male are not allowed into the compound. So this is how it is going on.
So Miari, this sounds quite bizarre. Does it make sense to you in a Nigerian context? It's not even like the Nigerian government have had a chance to fine-tune how they deal with girls who've come back from being taken by Boko Haram. Nothing like this has happened before. But what you're hearing from Peter, what you're seeing, do you think the girls are being best served right now?
Well, first I say thank you to you guys for having me on, but I do want to say this. I think that we need to keep things in context. And one of the things I don't think that it would be healthy to go towards is going the blame game, because then it just puts everybody at the defensive. But to answer your question, one of the things I will say, having heard what Peter said and just numerous other people, whether regarding the 21 that were released in October, or the recent, the ones that were just recently released, or the ones that escaped, is the fact that, the isolation is not going to be healthy for the girls. When you talk about, we're talking about different levels of trauma here. And I think that's very important for everybody to understand. And trauma can be experienced by, somebody can have the same event occur to them, but it's experienced differently by each person. So it's very important to treat each one of those girls as individuals as they are processing and healing from their trauma. But one of the other things that I keep hearing everybody saying is rehabilitation. But we have to break that word down. To rehabilitate somebody is to restore them to their previous condition. And I think some people are making the assumption that their previous condition was healthy and adequate for their overall well-being and for their overall just mental state, or just, even physical state. So I think we need to shift from using that word rehabilitation and maybe find a different word. I tend to use the word healing for the girls. Let me rephrase, not girls, they're young women, like you said, Femi. And so I think that's the important thing. I think that what's happening now with the government, I think, like you said, this is unprecedented. This has never happened before. I don't believe that at the onset, there was a strategic planning team that was put together. And what I mean by that is bringing mental health professionals, doctors, mentors, anybody, their families especially, like I think as Bunky was saying, their families especially, that is their safe place, as she mentioned.
Right.
And so bringing all these people bringing all these people together at the table and then saying, okay, this is an event that has never happened in the world before. No terrorist group has kidnapped over 200 girls before. So this is uncharted territory. So all these different people have to come together, not just a meeting of the minds, but a meeting of the hearts too. Because what we've seen with all of this is that it's become a cash cow system, and people want to blame the government and people want to blame this and want to blame this. But again, it's like, let's take a step back. What has happened has happened. We can't go back and change that.
What do you mean by cash cow?
You know what?
Let me just check it, Buki. I know you want to jump in, but I want you to explain what you mean by cash cow. Who's making the money? Well, other than Boko Haram, probably.
Well, this is what I know for sure, Femi. When the girls that escaped landed in the United States of America,
let me jump in at this point to talk about, to respond to the issue of rehabilitation, reintegration, and resettlement. Now, contextualizing rehabilitation, and when we look at the dictionary meaning of that, it speaks to the complete and reasonable restoration or remolding back to a normal and better quality of life. And there's a lot of elements that go into that. We're talking about psychological reconditioning. We're talking about spiritual rehabilitation. We know some of them were converted. If they want to continue with that religion, are they allowed to? Or do they want to pick up with their religion before? We're talking about physical rehabilitation. One of the girls, like we saw in the video, came back with an amputated limb. One has a very serious fracture on the hand. So there has to be physical rehabilitation. We're talking about emotional rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation. And all of these requires different actors. When we look at the reintegration bit of it, we're talking about some form of wholesomeness and reconditioning, and to become an integral part of the society. In such a way, we are instilling some positive characteristics, making them easily fit into the larger society. They've had to go through a society for the last 3 years. We need to recondition them back to this normal life.
Okay, so Buki, on that point of reconditioning back to normal life, I want to throw something at you from someone who has a different perspective, and I'd like you to explain this for our international audience. This is Chuck Legend. He says, those girls don't look traumatized in any way. Judging from what I saw in pictures that the government has released, there won't be any problems reintegrating them back into society. He goes on to say, I was expecting to see the girls hungry looking, scared, people who could barely associate with people who've been held captive for 3 years. So can you explain this thinking that trauma is something that people should be able to see on you? And is this prevalent?
When we look at the 21 girls that came back, some of the pictures of some of the few girls that were showed the holo in their neck, showed a lot of physical emaciation. And with these girls also, for some that have been seen, even Boko Haram feed themselves. They feed these people as well in one way or the other. So that they come back looking, the way they look does not take away the fact that they have gone through some suffering. Now, when we then talk about reintegration, it's not making them fat that we are talking about. We are talking about, first, if they have been radicalized, de-radicalization. We are talking about educational reintegration, that is formal and informal. We're talking about economic empowerment. We're talking about psychological disengagement, physical disengagement. We're talking about healthcare, primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, tertiary healthcare. So you can't see from the face what goes on in their heart. You cannot quantify suffering. Some people don't even show it on their faces. So yes, I understand why people are saying that, but does it preclude the fact that they need this help? It does not. So we should, as much as possible, push for all of these elements, reintegration, resocialization, and rehabilitation for these girls.
Peter, When we spoke to the Minister of Women and Social Development, because we were getting ready to be on this show, unfortunately she is not with us because she had to attend a late meeting, but she told us that the girls can leave any time. They can go home whenever they want to. But that's not been your experience with your niece.
I think the government, is the Women Affairs Minister, she's not saying the truth on this. What does she mean by saying that the girls can leave at any time they want, when they don't even allow family members or people that are more concerned about their health to come close to them? So I wish she's here so that I can ask her some questions personally, because this thing has been bothering us, the family and everyone around. But then the fact still remains that the Nigerian government need to be open to the family members, need to be open to everyone that is concerned. We don't get it. I mean, are you trying to shade something? Is there anything that they don't want us to hear from the girls? What are they hiding from us? I mean, I don't get it. So if the minister is here, I was going to ask her some serious questions, but right now I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, this is what I was talking about, like shifting from, when you asked for that headline, shifting from a sympathy mindset to an empathy mindset. I think when we have sympathy for people, we say, oh, look at them, we're sorry, we feel sorry for them, we may give some money or whatever, we offer a little help here or there, whatever the case may be, but we're not putting ourselves in their shoes, which is where the empathy comes from. And I think what Joseph is talking about, I'm a mother, and one of the things I know for a fact, if my son was kidnapped and I hadn't seen him, whether it was 5 hours or 3 years, it's unheard of that I would not be at the doorstep of wherever he's being held once he's released and out of captivity, wanting to hold him, wanting to just assure him that we didn't, stop praying and hoping that he would come back or he would be released, wanting to kiss the tears from his eyes, on all those nights and, days and years where he just felt hopeless. So I think what Joseph is talking about is very important. And I think it's very important that the Nigerian government understand that, again, from an empathy standpoint. A lot of us have children. It's unheard of to say, okay, I haven't seen my daughter in 3 years. When I watched that video of the woman talking about, yes, she's getting an education, so I have to wait. No, that's not acceptable. She doesn't need to wait. She needs to be there with her daughter. She needs to, there's a comfort that a mother or family members or people that, they're close to that could give them that nobody else can. I don't care how long you've worked with the girls, how long you can, I've heard people since for 3 years, oh, I love these girls, they're the best, blah, blah, blah. To me, I'm like, there's nothing like a family member holding you and saying, you know what, we never gave up on you.
Do you think this is happening because they have become so famous? Worldwide, everybody knows who they are. Their pictures are published, their names are published. They're famous young women. Peter, is that the problem? Is that why your niece is not at home with you, with her family?
No. I don't think this is the problem. I think there is something that Nigerian government don't want us to know. I think there is something. The fact that you're popular doesn't mean your family cannot see you. No matter how popular you are, without your family, I don't think your popularity makes any sense. So if the government is going to say it's because they are popular, their names are all over the world, so they don't want their family members or anybody to see them, I mean, this is not an excuse from the government. I think there is something, my heart is telling me that there is something that the government don't want to reveal, or they don't want everybody to know. That is why they keep these girls away. Even when they travel to Chibok, they're not allowed to go to their house. They were kept in government facilities in Chibok, and anyone that wants to see them, you sign a book, you say which village you're from, who do you want to see, and a time is given to you, and when that time you are asked to leave, and there are certain things that you're not allowed to ask the girls. You don't ask them about their experiences in Sambisa Forest. You don't do this, you don't do that. I mean, we don't get it. And even at this 82 that is released, what has the government do? This is the 5th day today, and up to today, as I'm talking to you, these families has not been contacted to come to our.
So I heard what Peter was saying there, Peter, I heard what you were saying there, though from our online community, it's not just the government. Ebony here on Twitter says, reuniting with their loved ones requires caution. That should be after a proper evaluation that they were not brainwashed by their abductors. So that's on that point. But there's another tweet here from Jamelia, and she represents a divide I'm seeing in our community. She says, these girls need to narrate their experiences. That's one view. The other view, this is Ebony, who says, no, talking to the media may trigger PTSD. After therapy, then integration with society. But as a victim of terror, as she calls it, talking may alter their mental balance. So Miari, I know that you counseled some of the girls who escaped. So they weren't even those who were there for 3 years. They escaped in 2014, but still needed your services and your help. What were those sessions like?
Okay, so could you repeat the last part again, please?
I know that you counseled some of the girls who escaped in 2014, and so that they weren't even there for 3 years, like the girls that were just, the 82 girls that were just released, but of course they still needed your counseling.
Right. Okay, so for the girls that, and I want to also mention something that was mentioned about trauma and suffering and the context of that. But for the girls that I've worked with, and I think this is important to keep this in our own context, those girls, at least from the ones I've worked with, most of them were not in captivity more than 5 hours, thereabout. So we're talking of different levels of trauma, simple, complex type of trauma, depending on how long that they were with their captors. With the girls that I worked with, one of the things that, even based on even what the online person has said, is that there is an occurrence of PTSD. There was this one specific girl that continues to have occurrences of PTSD. But the other thing I do want to mention about just mental health counseling and psychological evaluation, which I believe the media has exacerbated this whole situation by publicizing them very much in this.
Mummy is busy. So, Miari, put him on your lap and then finish your sentence. Hurry up. Done. It's fine. Pick him up and finish your sentence. There you go.
Okay. So,
all right, finish your thoughts.
I apologize. So what has happened with the media? One of my greatest fights since 2014 has been to keep these girls in a space of out of the media with just having some kind of normalcy in their
keep them out of the media. Okay, that's really interesting. I'm hearing a lot of this, Bookie, about why are they on TV, why are they being paraded, and your whole campaign was about giving the story visibility. Any regrets? Any missteps?
No regrets, no missteps. The Bring Back Our Girls campaign came out to advocate for the rescue of the Chibok girls and all other abductees. We took on other fights in between. However, it does not mean that by the time the girls start coming back, we don't adhere to certain principles as it relates to how to manage people like this. One thing that we saw, which even happened when Amina and Keki came out, was that concern that do we want to expose her face? Do we want people to possibly stigmatize her because she is known? And then the 21 came back and then Mayanga came back. So when we look at this, one thing is important that we continue to learn. The federal government of Nigeria needs to continue to learn. I mean, I'm listening to Peter and I'm bothered, about how the federal government is handling this.
We're right at the end of this show. I hear you. I hear that thought. And it was been interesting to hear from you and Peter and Somiari and her little one as well. Malika, where do you want to leave us?
This tweet from Obi, who says Nigerian children should grow with the confidence that going to school would not cost them their lives.
Thank you for joining us, guests. Thank you for watching. The conversation continues online using #AJStream. Take care.